Hello and welcome to Biology Hub. Today we are going to discuss the types of diseases. As in the previous videos, we have given a quick introduction about health and diseases. So today the topic that I'm going to cover is types of diseases. So let's just start the video. So basically types of diseases means how many types of diseases are there, on what basis we can classify them. That is what we are going to discuss today. So basically here we will start with classification of diseases, and classification of diseases, there are numerous ways by which we can basically classify diseases into different categories. So here first one, that is on the basis of duration. So on the basis of duration we can classify diseases into two categories, that is acute and chronic. So first of all we'll come to the acute disease. That is, acute diseases are those which persist for only short duration. They are such type of diseases which will persist for only short duration, and the intensity of symptom is very high. For example, cold. Now if you have cold, then you will be suffering from a lot of symptoms which will be very intense, and some of them are inflammation on the nasal area, okay, and then watery eye, and also watery nose. So here are certain types of images that I have shown here. Here you can see this image depicts that it's showing watery nose. Here you can see it's showing watery eye and also inflammation in the nasal epithelium. So this is what type of symptoms we get when we are suffering from cold. So cold is an acute disease which lasts for short duration, but the intensity of symptom is very high, and within a week, that is 7 days, you will be recovering from this particular disease. So acute diseases are those which persist for only short duration. Now coming to the next slide, that is chronic diseases. So chronic diseases are those which persist for long duration, and the symptoms are of low intensity. Low intensity as in it will not be very intense. You will not suffer that much as in case of acute disease. The symptoms will be of low intensity, and the duration of the disease, it persists for long time. For example, if you consider tuberculosis, here what will happen, you will encounter continuous cough, and that may be for 3 months or 6 months or 4 months. So it will take time. In case of tuberculosis, the cough is also not very intense, but it will persist for 3, 4, or 6 months. So this is what is chronic disease. Here the symptom persists for longer period, whereas in case of acute disease, the symptoms, they do not persist for longer period, but the intensity is very high. So this is what, on the basis of duration, we can classify diseases into. Next, what we are going to see is the second part. Second part as in the second way of classification of disease, that is infectious and non-infectious. Here if you see infectious and non-infectious, under infectious part we can see that it will spread from one person to other. It will spread from one person to other. That means if you have a germ of a certain agent, and that particular thing is known as pathogen. Okay, the disease causing agent is known as pathogen, and if you have that particular germ in you and you are in contact with your close relative, your parents, your brothers and sisters, that it might be a spread, it might get spread. So that is what you can consider the example of cholera. Also in today's time, you can also consider COVID-19 as such of disease. So it is infectious disease which spreads from person to person. And the second category that we have is non-infectious disease. That is, it might not get transmitted from person to person. So for that thing, the example that we have considered is diabetes. So this is such type of disease that do not get spread from person to person. So we have classified diseases. First one was on the basis of duration. Second one is either it is infectious or non-infectious. If it spreads from one person to other through the pathogen, then you can say it as infectious disease. And if you have a particular disease and that is not spreading, then you can say it as non-infectious diseases. Next, what we are going to see is the third one, consensual or acquired. So consensual or acquired, the meaning of consensual is something which you can get by birth, and it is normally genetic. Genetic in the sense you might get it from your parents, or it might get you might get it as a result of certain types of mutations as well. So consensual is normally genetic, and it is something which you get by birth. Here for this consensual thing, consensual disease, I have given the example of Down syndrome, which you get by birth or by certain types of mutations. And acquired disease is something which is caused after birth, which you will acquire in your lifetime and which you will get only after birth. So that is something which is on the basis of this particular thing, we can again categorize diseases into two different groups. So this was the third classification. Again, acquired disease can be divided into two such categories. That is, acquired diseases can be communicable or non-communicable. Communicable and non-communicable are similar to infectious and non-infectious. So acquired diseases, it may be communicable. For example, cholera. That means it is spreading from one person to other. Non-communicable, which is not getting transmitted from person to person. So example is diabetes. Okay, so next one is on the basis of causative agent. That means depending upon what type of agent is causing disease, we can classify diseases shown here as. First one is bacteria. So if you get a disease by a bacterial attack, by a bacteria, then we can term it as bacterial disease. An example of each type of agent is given here. So for bacteria, it is, you will call the disease as bacterial disease. Example is tuberculosis. Second one is viral disease. If you're getting attacked by any sort of viruses, so that particular disease you can refer to as viral disease. Example is AIDS, and recently we have come across the COVID-19 thing. So then if you are diseased with the protozoa, then you call it as protozoan disease. And the example is malaria. So for the malaria is certain type of disease where you get attacked by a protozoan, Plasmodium vivax. And next is fungal disease. So example is ringworm. Then helminth, example is ascariasis. So we will consider all these type of diseases one by one in detail. So this is just the basic classification of diseases on the basis of causative agent. So this is what you can classify diseases on the basis of four means that we have just seen. Next up is some important terms. So these are the terms that we are going to encounter while we study the entire chapter. So here certain types of terms are given here. First one is your pathogen. So whatever agent is causing disease, that is termed as pathogen. It may be a bacteria, it may be a virus, it may be protozoan, helminth, anything. So that particular thing or agent which is causing the disease is termed as pathogen. Symptom. So we already know what is symptom, but since we are using the term here, so we are going to define it. Symptom means signs of a disease. Suppose you are suffering from malaria. So what are the symptoms that you are going to encounter? What are the symptoms that you are going to face? Those are, you will feel very cold, that is the cold stage. Then there may be suddenly high rise in temperature, that is your hot stage. And then the temperature may suddenly become low by sweating, and you will sweat so much that your whole body is going to get drenched by sweating. So that is something which is found in malaria. So I'm giving the example of malaria because this is a disease which is quite common, and these are the signs that you are going to see or you are going to suffer from if you are suffering from malaria. So symptom basically is something which shows the signs of a disease, and after the diagnosis of those particular signs you are going to get proper treatment for the disease that you have been diagnosed with. Next we have is treatment. So treatment also, we know what is treatment, but here again these are the terms that we are what we are going to encounter in the whole chapter. So let us see what is actually treatment. So treatment is something which is a process after diagnosis. If you are diagnosed with certain type of a disease, then if you take medication, so that is what we say it as treatment, but it may be either symptom targeted or pathogen targeted. So for example, again, we can take the example of malaria. So in case of malaria, you will be a bit, you will feel a bit feverish. Your body temperature is going to increase, as I have already mentioned. So at that time, if you take a pyretic like crocin or paracetamol, then what is going to happen? You are using a drug which is symptom targeted, rather than you are being diagnosed or you go to a doctor to consult him. You are just focusing on the symptom that you have been encountered with, and the symptom, this thing you can say it as symptom targeted. If you take a medicine, okay, if you take a pyretic medicine like crocin or paracetamol, that means you are trying to lower your body temperature. In that case, the drug which you took, you cannot say that you are taking a right drug, because you are trying to lower your body temperature, and that is what that treatment, we can term it as symptom targeted, because you are acting upon the symptom that you have received. Second one is pathogen targeted. So pathogen targeted, we can use the example of malaria again. If you are suffering from malaria and you have consulted a doctor, he has diagnosed and told you that you are suffering from malaria, rather than lowering your body temperature, if you take a particular drug, say for example quinone, if you take quinone, then this particular drug is going to react against the pathogen which has attacked you, that is the plasmodium vivax, which is a protozoan. So this particular protozoan is responsible for the malaria thing. So if you take a drug which will attack this particular agent, that means you are getting treated on the basis of pathogen. That means the treatment that you are taking is pathogen targeted. So this is what we need to understand here. These are the certain types of terms that we are going to use in the entire chapter. In the next video, we are going to talk about a few more terms. So if you liked the video, then please do subscribe and like the video. Keep learning. Thank you.